From the Fans Talk Podcast family at fanstalkpodcast.com, this is episode 27 of Fans Talk TNA. And it covers the April 24th, 2015 episode of Impact Wrestling on Destination America. My name is Garvin, and with us this week to talk some TNA is Nick. Say hello, Nick.
Howdy.
As you guys know, Fans Talk TNA is a podcast series that is brought to you exclusively by our friends who have stepped up and pledged a few dollars our way on Patreon. You can check out fanstalktna.com for all the information on how to support and subscribe, as well as gain access to the full archives. So before we get started, shout-outs to Mandeep, Sandra, Jesse Garcia, and Clover Cold 89 for their comments this week on YouTube and Google+. Thank you for continuing the conversation. And then we also want to send a quick shout-out to Andrew Ferris on Google+, who sent a topic to us about just the talent policy of TNA, how it seems like there's a rotating door of talent coming in and out, and it's hard to get behind people. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the conversation, but definitely thank you for starting that conversation over on Google+. Let's go ahead and talk about what happened this week in TNA. This week we saw the Night of Knockouts, but we got a lot of other stuff too. So let's get into the secondary stories. Again, this is the Night of Knockouts, so we'll spend quite a bit of time on that. But here's everything else that happened. First, BDC versus The Rising. We got a little bit more development there, including the in-ring debut of Micah. So Micah's first match versus Kenny King. What was your thoughts about this match and how this story is developing, Nick?
I thought it was a pretty decent match, and that's about it. I'm not exactly sure what sort of progression we saw here beyond the fact that we did get to see Micah in a singles match.
Yeah.
I'm getting the feeling that they're starting to lose a little momentum, and it makes me wonder why that is, because it seems like the next logical step is to bring in a fourth guy to level the playing field.
You'd almost have to, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering why they're hesitating on pulling the trigger on that.
Yeah, and what really bothered me about this was that there was no reason for Drew to get involved in the match the way he did. It just seemed odd. Like they're playing up the whole like the babyface side, that it's always BDC that's getting involved in matches and causing chaos. But in this match, it was Drew that got involved in the match. There was nothing that he was responding to. He just did it, which seemed really odd.
Well, there was the little chicanery with MVP when he talked about getting ready, and then all of a sudden Kenny King jumps Mike and
well, sure.
I never said it was me getting in this match.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a pretty dumb move on Galloway's part.
Yeah, and I thought that was entertaining as far as what MVP did. But this ended the way you expected, where BDC, now that they had Micah by himself, despite Micah picking up the win, it was a BDC beatdown. So, but after this match though, we did get some interesting information that really hadn't been publicized anywhere else, and that was that next week is TNA's Impact edition of Hardcore Justice.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty interesting. Obviously, Destination America is not the same sort of... It doesn't have the same sort of audience that Spike TV did. Yeah. It's not as explicit, not as... it is TV-14, but it doesn't let you go quite as far. So it's going to be interesting to see how far TNA can take this Hardcore Justice.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Drew called out low key in a steel pipe on a pole match for next week's Hardcore Justice. I'm getting kind of irritated in how, and I know we talked about this last week about maybe we should highlight certain divisions every week, or we should. Well, really, it was that. It was like, give the X division some time this week, and next week it'll be the tag team division, so on and so forth. But TNA is not necessarily going that route now. It just seems like every single week it's pay-per-view level event, and it's getting kind of irritating because by the end of it, it doesn't feel like it was that pay-per-view level. So This week was, the night of knockouts. Before that, it was the tag team championships, and now this week it's Hardcore Justice. So it seems like every week has some kind of label on it, and I'm almost feeling like it's too much.
Yeah, I get that feeling as well, and I agree. They're not exactly handling this the way I feel would be the right way. Like with the tag title gold episode, yeah, we had some great tag team action, but they finished it off with an Ultimate X match, and even then they kind of diluted that with a ladder spot.
Yeah.
With this week with the night of knockouts, I have mixed feelings about that because it's more knockouts content than we usually get. But even with the big reveal at the end of the show or at the end of the knockout show, that wasn't what they closed out with.
Which we'll get into.
Yeah, that just disappointed me. So yeah, I'm definitely with you. I wish they would stop with all the labels and just focus on providing good content.
It just feels like we're at a point where we're just over promoting what the next week is going to be. Like we don't need these special labels to know that next week is a must see. Like you can do that through your normal storylines, but that's not where it's taking place. It's like, you got to see this because whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm personally as a fan not necessarily satisfied with the content we are getting on these special episodes. By no means are they bad shows, but it's like they're over promising and under delivering rather than what they should be doing, which is over delivering and not promising really anything.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
So we'll move on from that. Talk about the Revolution, and I'm going to start this just with the Magnus and Mickie James segment because James Storm got involved. I don't know how this fits yet in the Revolution storyline as a whole, but there's got to be something going on or something that they're building to. I don't know if it's Magnus versus James Storm. I know you had talked about this, for the last couple of weeks as far as the idea of maybe Mickie James joining the Revolution, but just the fact that we've got, this question, this unsure sense of, what James Storm's real intentions are as far as Magnus is concerned, and this talk between Davey Richards and Magnus, like, you can't trust this guy. So there's obviously this is all intertwined in some fashion. But overall, let's talk about predictions. Like, where do you see this going next when it comes to Magnus and Mickie James?
I'm hopeful that this means that James Storm is using this kind of reversion to face Storm in order to sucker Mickie in. And I say hope because there's a very real possibility that it'll end up being Magnus and Storm fighting over Mickie like she's some confused damsel in distress, which would be an extremely bad move, in my opinion. Beyond the possibility of Mickie joining Revolution, I'm not exactly sure where this is going because there's a really weird dichotomy going on here. In the same show, you've got face James Storm, the beer-swilling redneck that loves fast cars and country music, and then you've got the evil mastermind psyching up Abyss and Koya to go jack up Davey Richards. So, I don't know. It's an interesting sort of Jekyll and Hyde imagery, but beyond that, I really have no idea where it's going.
Well, and, just look at the interaction between Manic and James Storm last week. When Manic was like, "What the heck are you doing? Why are you talking to James? Or why are you talking to Mickie James in that fashion?" And it was more or less like he's got a strategy. It's obvious that he's got something planned, but he's just not telling anyone what that is. As far as Mickie James joining the Revolution, I don't know if I necessarily see that, just because I don't know if I like the idea of her turning against Magnus. It just doesn't make sense, unless like they're going to bring some kind of divorce into the story. But because they've already talked about the real life kid and the real life, being together. Actually, are they married? Maybe they're not married yet.
They're not married yet. They are engaged.
Okay, so maybe it's a little bit more realistic because they're not married yet. They can throw off the engagement. I think that would be fine. But just the idea that she would turn against Magnus, I'm not really ready to believe that yet. But it does make sense that for her to be the pawn, like you said, because, you know, the fact is she was obviously upset that she was going to retire. It was obvious that there was some kind of, you know, that there was that tone that Magnus almost put her into that spot where she had to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, why is she staying at home and not Magnus? They're both wrestlers. They're both former champions. They're both really good at what they do in the ring. So why was that particular decision made? So I think that's part of the story that we're getting with James Storm. Like, James Storm is like, you know, the fans love you and I love you and everyone wants to see you in the ring. I think that's going to play into it as far as, you know, and maybe tying that into the whole current saga, real life saga of Give Divas a Chance and that whole movement where, you know, women in different industries are fighting for equal rights and equal pay and all that stuff. So maybe this is part of that kind of movement as well. And if that's the case, that would be a really interesting turn to it.
Yeah, I think you got the right idea there. It seems like it would have to be Magnus almost pushing Mickey in this direction. Not on purpose, but Storm would be in Mickey's ear talking about how, oh, he wants you to stay at home while he goes off and does God knows what with God knows who.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'd be sort of the devil on her shoulder while Magnus, like, he sends the camera crew off to go see if she's okay, but she interprets that as, wait, you don't trust me? Fine, I'm going to go do this. To hell with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely Revolution, not interested. I don't care about Revolution at this point, but this is bringing me into it just because of the different directions that they can go. Again, I'm not totally keen on Mickie James joining Revolution, but it would be an interesting, you know, twist.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
All right, so we also saw Davey Richards versus Manic. Davey Richards picked up the win, another 3-on-1 attack, which ended up with the Hardys coming out to make the save. So that sets up next week, which is the Hardys and Davey Richards versus the Revolution. All right, so the World Championship title race. Again, this is the night of knockouts, but we also got the World Championship title race. It was a lot of Angle and EY talking. Tonight we were supposed to get that main event, EY versus Angle for the title. That never happened. Instead, it was Aries. Aries decided he was going to cash in. He made a big deal out of it, made the announcement, and basically took the match away from EY. EY was going to have to wait another week at least before he could, go after the title. So overall, we didn't get that. EY turned back to crazy EY, I guess, and took out both Aries and Angle at the end of the night. Overall, what's your thoughts about all of this?
I'm a little disappointed because honestly, I was really hoping that EY was trying to sucker Angle, but it looks like that tease of a face turn was legitimate for him.
Yeah.
And Aries goes and screws it all up by cutting in line ahead of him. I do like the idea that, I don't know, I just like the idea that EY is staying in the forefront of this race. And also the idea that Aries isn't out of it either because he never actually cashed in that briefcase.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a whole lot of development in the title race going on. I'm a fan of that.
I don't necessarily like how this all went down. I mean, at first I thought it was cool. I mean, okay, let me take this back. EY basically agreeing to be good EY and go after Angle, properly and respectably. I like that. I like that we saw, this angry side and crazy side of EY again at the end of the night, but it was in retaliation to Aries. Basically, Aries taking his place, basically taking advantage of, okay, well, we've got good EY now, so I'm just going to walk all over him kind of thing. So it makes it difficult for me to choose sides. Now I think, even despite EY attacking Angle and basically hurting Angle and hurting Aries, to me, EY is not the bad guy here.
I don't know. Aries cashed in because he thought EY was trying to sucker Angle, that EY couldn't be trusted. And you're right. There are no good guys here. There's a lot of gray area here, but yeah, it's. I don't necessarily consider EY only a victim.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I see EY as a victim. I'm okay with him attacking Aries. To me, it was deserved. But at the same time, he did go a bit overboard. I think there was three pile drivers in total for Aries, which historically will mean that Aries is gone for at least a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is proving EY's point that he has to be this dick and this overall crazy and this guy that you cannot predict what he's going to do for him to be seen as a credible contender. Otherwise, people are just going to shove him off to the side like Aries did this week. So yeah, to me, this just made EY's story more compelling and more legit. But another thing that we saw this week was the inclusion of EC3. EC3 taking his moment to basically announce to the crowd that in 2015 he will be TNA World Champion, which again is what I've wanted. I think you're kind of unsure about, but overall this segment was probably the segment of the night, I think.
I completely agree. That was a magnificent campaign speech right there. And Tyra is standing in the background with the balloons and the completely straight face. I love that image.
Yeah, the only thing that ruined this for me was Anderson. Anderson coming out, just because that was like your next. I mean, it's needed because you need an intermediary between EC3 and going after the title, especially everything that's happening right now with Aries and EY. But I was okay with Anderson not being involved with EC3 anymore.
Yeah, that really disappointed me. I really had my heart set on that Bram Tyrus feud. Anderson versus EC3, I think I can live with it. The promos alone should be pretty decent at the worst. It's the matches that I'm not exactly sold on because Anderson is not the best wrestler. And EC3, he's a good wrestler, but up till now, it's always been a case of he's working up to the other guy's level.
Yeah.
Like, all of his opponents to date, like especially with Angle, but Bully Ray as well. Like, those guys are absolutely phenomenal wrestlers. And EC3, I don't know, he just hasn't been in as many matches as you'd think, actually, given his undefeated streak and how long he's been in the company by now.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be really interesting to watch and see how this unfolds.
Yeah, I was looking for a step up. His stuff with Spud was entertaining, but him going from Spud to Anderson, I don't think is a step up. I think it's just a parallel step, just because Anderson really hasn't done anything worthwhile since he left Aces and Eights and had that feud with Bully Ray. I think that was some of Anderson's best work. But since then, he's been, either not on TV or just lackluster at best. But hopefully this ends fairly soon, and then we can have that EC3 versus Angle or EC3 versus Aries or whomever EC3 needs to go through to get the title. But I'm totally in this whole idea of EC3 being your champion this year.
Yeah, I definitely think that could happen.
All right, so Night of Knockouts. This was the night of knockouts, all knockouts, all night. We've already talked about some of the other knockouts that have, competed this week. But let's get into the heart of it. We had 3 matches. Your first match was Gail Kim versus Angelina Love versus Brooke Tessmacher versus Madison Rayne for the number 1 contendership. Brooke won the match overall. Do you think that the right person won?
I'm not entirely sure about the right person, but I guess I really didn't want to see anybody else win either. Gail Kim will eventually have to go after Taryn Terrell. That's a given.
Totally.
But I kind of want a little bit of space between that and the current Kong feud. Mm-hmm. So this completely works for me. And I really want to see how Brooke has improved as a wrestler since her last reign.
Well,
because she was already improving pretty well.
Well, what'd you think about this match?
I think she did all right for herself. It's a little bit harder to tell in a multi-person match like this,
sure.
But yeah, I think she definitely proved that she's at least worthy of a shot.
Knowing now what happens the rest of the event, knowing that Brooke made sense storyline wise, it made sense. But as far as wrestling quality wise, to me, she's not ready. She's not ready to be put back in that spot. I think I don't want to throw the green term around because I think she's past that. I think she is a serviceable worker. Okay. But as far as being championship quality, no way. No, not compared to the other three that were in this match. Like you said, it's hard to really gauge where she was in comparison because, in a 4-person match, there's just so much going on. It's really hard to keep track. It's really hard to have those good wrestling moments. But Madison Rayne was fantastic in this match. Northern Light suplex, her knee strikes. It just seemed like she was the most determined to win. She was the most quality of the four of them. So I to me, again, knowing what we know now, and we'll talk about it in a second, but knowing what we know now, Brooke makes sense. But I think I have totally changed my mind about Madison Rayne.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point as well. I think I'm kicking and screaming as I reach that conclusion a little more than I'd like to admit. But yeah, she's definitely improved a lot.
Yeah. All right, so Brooke's your number one contender. Before we talk about who she'll be facing, let's talk about the debut of the Dollhouse, specifically Jade. Jade was in her first match against Laura Dennis, also known as Cherry Bomb. They said Cherry Bomb in commentary. Well, Josh Matthews said her name was Cherry Bomb. And then she had cherries like all over her ring gear. So I don't know why they went the route of giving her another name, but yeah. Thoughts on the Dollhouse on their debut?
There's a little bit too much commitment to the gimmick, I think. It's like if you took the beautiful people and regressed them back to childhood, which I think could work, but that entrance was far too drawn out. And I think that kind of hindered the match as well because Jade is a phenomenal wrestler. Marty Bell is a pretty good wrestler in her own right. I haven't seen quite as much of her work as I've seen of Jade's, but yeah, this really could have been a better match than it was.
But it wasn't a bad match.
No.
Jade works very strong. She works almost like a powerhouse brawler. It seemed, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. But yeah, overall, I thought the story was fine. You're right as far as the analogy between them and the beautiful people. But yeah, like grade school level beautiful people. I don't know. I think and post match they attacked the ref. They attacked Christy Hemme. I like the brutal side of them. Overall, I think that's a much needed character style in women's wrestling in general. Like we see too many women's wrestlers that don't necessarily have a defined character outside of either being hot or being a wrestler. There doesn't seem to be a lot of in between. Like you had ODB, which was kind of like a fun character, but this is more of like they have a brutal side, which is nice to see overall.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, like you said, it wasn't a bad match by any stretch. I'm always a sucker for a shining wizard.
Yeah.
It's just maybe they leaned a little too heavy on this gimmick.
Well, and it was the debut. It was the introduction, so it'll probably get scaled back a little bit as we go on. Especially considering who they partnered up with, which is Taryn Terrell. Taryn Terrell, heel turn, I guess, and basically used the help of the Dollhouse, which I guess she's a part of now, to take out Awesome Kong and win. So yeah, overall, I think we'll see them scale back a little bit. Taryn Terrell will be probably that main focal point, that main voice. which overall I think is good. This was a nice swerve that I wasn't expecting. Needed though.
Yeah, I agree with that. This gives Taryn a much needed edge. I really don't think she even had that edge in her matches with Gail Kim. That as great as they were, it was very much there wasn't really a character going into that. But now we're seeing Taryn develop as a character and as well as her development as a wrestler.
Yeah.
So yeah, any way you can get to that is fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, I was really afraid that what they were trying to do was just like reproduce the good that they had between Gail Kim and Awesome Kong the last time Awesome Kong was in. So I didn't want to see the same thing happen between Taryn and Terrell, where it's like, your David and Goliath type of thing. And this again, I think is a good thing. It was a needed thing because my whole issue with Taryn Terrell is she really hasn't been built as this believable contender against Awesome Kong up until the last few interactions, and even then there was so many signs of weakness. This is her acknowledging that through a storyline and really surrounding herself with the the needed help to get over and to retain that title. So I'm all for this. I think this is really good. Okay, well that was it. That was this week in TNA. Next week again is going to be Hardcore Justice. So far announced is Drew McIntyre versus Low-Ki in a steel pipe on a pole match. We'll get Hardys and Davey Richards versus the Revolution in a street fight. And yeah, it should be interesting. Probably not a whole lot of blood at all. Although Angle got opened up this week by EY. I didn't really see the altercation that caused it, or the scenario that caused it. So I he's been working with like this cut on the top of his head. I'm just assuming that got opened up. Did you see?
Yeah, I didn't see the spot either. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly where it happened.
Yeah, EY was working on his leg, and all of a sudden he was bleeding. It was kind of hard to see what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, your win of the week.
I've got 2 wins from this week. One, New Blood in the Knockouts division, long overdue, and great talent in that division now. And second, EC3's campaign speech. All that was gravy.
Yeah. Mine's going to go to Taryn joining the Dollhouse. The way they ended that match, I thought that was different than what I mean. It was definitely different than what I was expecting TNA to do. I think it's a good risk to take to partner up. Your new faction with your champion. It should be good for both of them, really. Also, Madison Rayne, I thought, showed some great stuff as well. Fails. What was your fail of the week, Nick?
No Bryan versus Tyrus. That just makes me sad. Anderson versus EC3 ought to make for better promos than that would have provided, but not as good a match, I don't think.
Yeah, and we didn't even get Bram at all this week. It's kind of disappointing that, just because of how things have gone, Bram's been like a heavy portion of the show. He's been knocked down now twice and then off TV. So, hoping that changes soon. My fail is just going to go to the fact that this was the night of knockouts, and as you heard us talk, at least 2/3 of the show were dedicated to things that were not the knockouts. So for TNA to suggest that a night of knockouts just includes one more match of knockouts does not qualify as a special knockouts, highlighted event. Like, they didn't even have the end of the show. They didn't even have the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that especially the end of the show bit. That I thought that was garbage. We really could have flip-flopped those spots.
Yeah, you end the show with Taryn Terrell standing over Kong and the dollhouse next to her, and that's where you fade out. That's a great ending, and that would totally change my thoughts on this. I mean, I think we would still need some more knockouts for your night of knockouts, but to end a show like that, I think would have changed my opinion altogether.
Yeah, it probably would have helped if they'd had, instead of the fatal 4-way for the number 1 contendership, a short little tourney. I think that would have been a lot better.
Yeah, I can agree with that. You might have some issues just because we saw something similar the week before with the tag team tournament going into the main event, but just something else. And I don't know, maybe it's just that that's their depth. Maybe their depth is too small
Yeah.
on the roster to really push an all knockouts event. But I think you could have done a little bit more. I think you could have easily come 50% of the show or close to that, you know. But the fact that they got maybe 20 minutes in total of an hour and a half of content, I think that's a real shame.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so before we close out, we've got a little topic here that just kind of want to talk about. Andrew Ferris on Google Plus posted this in the community. You can get that link over on fanstalktna.com. But he posted this topic, and it's about TNA's talent policy. He says over the last few years, we've seen time and time again that they keep hiring people, pushing them for a few months, and then dropping them from the roster in short order. He listed names like Joey Ryan, Doc, Garrett Bischoff, Wes Briscoe, Nux, Robbie T, The Freak, Chavo even. You know, Chavo was kind of in the same boat. Christian York, Lady Top. I mean, name after name after name. Then talks about how, you know, just in general, the landscape has changed from your TNA originals that are no longer with the company, including AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Velvet Sky, Kaz. And, you know, as we just talked about with Bram was one of your main fixtures on the show, got knocked down 2 weeks in a row, and then now is off the show. Gunner, Sam Shaw, Sarge, it's not even clear if they're still on the roster. Samuel Shaw was on Explosion, so they still are using these people, but just not in the way you would want. So his question is, with such a major revolving door policy, at least how it seems, is there a point at all to get behind new people that are debuting? You know, Drew Galloway, Micah, two guys that have just come in and are getting this mega push. With TNA's track record, should we just expect them to be gone, or at least not on TV as often in 3 to 4 months? What do you think?
Frankly, I'm a little surprised at how long Galloway stuck around, because the way he debuted over in the UK, that made me think it was just going to be a European tour thing. But no, he's not only stuck around, but he's also bringing people in, and that excited me. As far as the overall point goes, yeah, it is a little disheartening to see folks that we think really could hit it big in TNA kind of just fall to the wayside after a couple months. But then again, I've been getting the feeling for a while now that we've got to adjust our expectations a little bit as TNA moves forward, because they really did get bit in the ass with a lot of the long-term contracts that they signed some years back. Guys like RVD, guys like Ric Flair, they had ironclad contracts for a lot of money, and those talents really didn't go anywhere. So I think this is a good move by TNA to either sign really short-term contracts or even just handshake agreements.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense for their business model. Yeah, for guys like Nux or Robbie T, guys that we might want to see push a little more than they were. Yeah, that kind of sucks for us as fans, but I don't know. It's just different from what you see with the WWE, and I don't think that's entirely a bad thing, at least for the talent.
Yeah, I'm not totally against people coming in for a few months and then leaving. That's very old school.
Yeah, that's territory stuff.
Yeah, like regional stuff. I mean, you used to see that all the time. A lot of these names. I mean, there was a ton of names in this list, and yeah, you're totally right, Andrew. I mean, you can look at all these names as far as people they brought in, and then a couple months later they were gone. But also look at the quality of people that were here. A lot of them struggled to get over. So Garrett Bischoff never was accepted. Wes Briscoe the same way. You did see signs of Nux getting over, but for whatever reason, they took him from what he was doing well, which was Aces and Eights, and they put him into the sideshow, whatever. I don't even remember what it's called now.
The Menagerie.
The Menagerie. So yeah, you had Nux in the Menagerie, and that never got over. So, you know, you can't just expect people that you're bringing in to get over and do well and then stick with it. So yeah, I'm with you. This is alarming. The number of people that they've brought in that haven't stuck with the company is alarming. But at the same time, not all of these names would any reasonable promoter keep on the roster just because. I mean, I wouldn't move forward with a lot of these people. I think Matt Morgan is a name that I would, but Matt Morgan was done with wrestling. He made that pretty clear. He sort of tried to jump over to WWE. They didn't really give him the full opportunity, and he retired. Joey Ryan's got ties with I think PWG, so most likely the deal that they did give him just wasn't worth the time. So I don't know. I mean, who knows? Who knows at the end of the day? I think Joey Ryan could have done well, but as far as a long-term character, I don't necessarily see that. Havoc is the only name on this list that I think there's a misconception of or perception of what she's doing, where she's been. Her father died right before the European tour. So that's why she was kept off the tour. Most likely, they're just keeping her off TV so that she's not getting the spotlight that she honestly deserves. That type of character requires a spotlight. You've got Kong there that is your heavy hitter. So I'm almost thinking they're leaving her off until the next set of tapings.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. With a character like Havoc, the character that she's supposed to have, you really need, like you said, a spotlight on her.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in the division right now with Dollhouse, with Kong being around, with, I don't know, Gail Kim's still there. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and Havoc needs a little bit of space in order to make her return really meaningful.
Yeah. I want to make a mental note. Let's talk about this again in 3 months. So whatever that is, it's April, May, June, July. So in July, let's talk about this again and see where Drew McIntyre is. Or Drew Galloway. Because I really think that if he continues to get over like he is right now, if he continues to do good work, I don't see why they would drop him, or vice versa. I think overall this is working well for both of these parties. So yeah, I'm not sure where Micah will be, but I think Drew is a great character that can do good things, and yeah. So hopefully this isn't a continuation. Hopefully we aren't seeing another group of people brought in while these people are moved out. But I think overall, it's all about how if you can get yourself over, and Drew's doing it. So we'll see. We'll see in 3 months.
Completely. Yeah, and let's not overshadow the fact that even with all the revolving door of talent coming in and out, TNA still maintaining a solid core of long-term talent, like your Bobby Roode, your James Storm, your Kurt Angles. They're still keeping that solid core of guys and girls around.
All right. Any other thoughts before we close up?
I think that about covers everything.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining the conversation once again. If you're listening on YouTube, continue the conversation in the comments section. If you're listening on demand through a podcast player or SoundCloud, you can reach out to us on Google+, Twitter, Facebook, even Instagram. Just head on over to fanstalktna.com for all of those links. There you can get the full archive as well as other ways to support us, including pledging a few dollars our way on Patreon. Every little bit will help. fanstalktna.com for all of that. And again, if you listen on demand through a service that allows you to leave ratings and reviews like iTunes, please take a moment and let people know that this is where they should be talking TNA. See you guys next week.